It feels like home, home, home. It feels like home, home, home. It feels like home.
Sure, we went to Harbor Freight and just got one of these frames. This is like for a garage, but we just cut it down so that we didn't make it as big as a real garage and just use the frame. And then we have a local tin place that manufactures this tin, and they have seconds and or stuff that they didn't like the way it came out. Maybe it had a little bend in it, maybe the end wasn't quite right. And for something like a goat, who cares, or our donkey, we don't care. So I could get this for $1 a foot, which ends up being about 25 cents a square foot for roofing. And I just used self-tapping nails, and we just come straight into the frame here. On the back side, we're going to go ahead and put a back on it because it keeps the rain from coming through and washing down our, I don't know if you can see, but our salt blocks are starting to get a little gooey there because the rain can come all the way through this thing. And so if we seal up one side, it's going to keep the rain from doing that. So we just took some regular 2x4s, drove through this way, and put a couple tappers in on each of these. And now I'm just taking more of our tin that we bought. This is stuff that was only 4 feet long because he was all out of the 8-foot pieces when I went to see him. But 4 foot will work fine for this because we'll just overlap it where we need to. And as we do it, it's starting to look like a little pasture.
A little barn, huh?
A little barn. And you can see as I go up to the next one, it's going to really start to cover this thing and keep the rain from just coming through and blowing her out when it rains hard. Let's do it over here, Paul, because that'll be where it overlaps the other. So I'm putting them in and then coming at an angle so I don't have to break them off on the inside, which is fine with me.
Let me come over and get that.
We get our rough cut lumber at a place called Ellis, and he'll give us 2x4s for $3 a piece, which is pretty cheap these days because 2x4s are outrageous. And the funny part is, if you look down on it right here, this one's two and a half probably inches thick right here, where you can't really get a 2x4 anymore. But they're real 4 inches by 2 inches.
It's all right. It's all right. Sorry, she was talking over you.
All right.
So it's a real 2x4, I heard. It's also the rough cut.
Last one's harder because it goes through 2. Last one. Thank you. And then we'll see how well we measure for that top. We don't know. We measure for one side, and the other side we just did a mirror image, which this thing may not be perfectly square, so it may not work. That's pretty good, boy.
So is this a special kind of drywall screw, or it's just drywall screws?
Cheapy drywall screws.
Look. Yeah. Get off before Dad.
I need a screw in my thing.
So it's not the fanciest spot, but it will protect her from the wind and the rain and potentially some snow. We've got a fence that used to be up. It's not all the way up anymore. It used to be up between the goats and the donkey, but we took part of it down now that they're getting along well.
All right, Paul, let's see what we can do. I'm not sure this is going to work or not. I mean, I just did a mirror image of that other side, so we'll find out. And this thing is not exactly square. It's fine, right?
That'll work perfect. I got 2.
You got it? All right, you hold her still, Paul. Got it? Oh, dropping. Hang on. Lift your side up a little bit, Lou. Oh, it's in nice. Is it in nice out with you, Paul?
Yeah, it looks good.
One more? All right, she ain't going anywhere. You guys can let go for a sec. And I will tighten this part up. And there she goes. Oh, sorry, look.
You need that?
Yeah.
So I see you have gloves on. That's not a norm for you.
Well, this stuff gets really sharp, especially where I've had to cut it. And so I've cut myself many times on this tin, and I don't play with it anymore. When we cut this in, we just get a grinding wheel and a cutoff wheel on one of our grinders, and that's the best way to cut this stuff because it goes really fast. Just make sure you have glasses on because it'll throw a bunch of sparks. And usually I get the boys to hold it and shut their eyes. That looks pretty good. Let's put a couple more in, and I think she's gonna not go anywhere. And at least we got a wind and rain barrier.
Yes, that's so nice.
Our donkey will not get all wet, and her food won't get all wet. So yeah, I think this building, our total cost on this little building was like $250.
Because, so the frame part was how much? You got it at Harbor Freight, right?
$130 for the frame.
And it's just one of those little carports, right?
It's just a little carport, and we made it smaller because we didn't need a full carport. It's the same thing we did for our hay barn right there, that little bitty hay barn. It's just a little Harbor Freight thing, and we just cut it out and made it. It's a carport that we made. This one's not as tall. That one we went ahead and did the full size of the legs so that it ended up being tall
I'll
enough
show
to
you
put.
next to that one so we get a perspective.
But very cheap way to do buildings, and they've held up well. We've had them. That one we've had 2 years now, and it's held up real well. Haven't had any trouble with it.
Well, we did this one last year, but it didn't have the back on it, and so Mary and I had used the carport tarp, but back here, to just try and block the wind off of her. But finally, it came down this spring, so it was time to do something a little more. No, it was time to do something more permanent.
But this tin will hold up a long time.
So that's the one that we did for hay, and it's quite a bit bigger, as you can see. So there was nothing at this house for any
I just used
animals.
4x4s treated around the edges on the ground, and then we bought some big 4x8 pallets that we found on Craigslist. They're like $25 a piece. We got 2 of those and just set those straight on the ground.
I think they were $12 a piece.
$12 a piece, and then we set those straight on the ground, and then just threw a piece of ply on top of those and just tacked it down, and that's what we're using to keep stuff off the ground and keep it from
What in
getting
the world is
wet
this?
when it gets wet.
What is that?
Some kind of weird caterpillar. Welcome to our world. We always get weird bugs. And
Wow. It looks like a bottle cleaner of some
yes,
sort.
it does. It looks like a little bottle cleaner, pipe cleaner. Yep. Although a lot of times those furry ones are poisonous.
Don't
You
touch
probably
it.
Don't want to mess with it. Yeah.
So that over there is the Timothy hay, in case we decided to get the goatee girls pregnant. They need extra protein. And then this is just our regular orchard hay. It's our hay master right there. So it's the
That's
same
what we did.
thing.
Yeah,
It's one
same
of those carport deals.
Yep. And we went ahead and put a frame on this side because we wanted to have a door. So we went ahead and just, again, ran a board, tacked it into our main pipe, and then I just ran some up and downs and cut into them. And we did this whole thing for so cheap. But we just needed something to cover the hay to keep it from being wet. We'd had it covered with a tarp, and that just did not
No, you
work.
can't do it in North Carolina.
No.
Or at least we didn't have good luck with it. Yep.
And it snows occasionally, so the pitch on this is good enough that the snow goes ahead and goes off. Again, you can look up here. This was very cheap stuff because a lot of it still had holes in it it was returns from somebody, obviously. And so it had little holes in it.
Just a little extra ventilation.
Just a little extra ventilation, and I'll get some Henrys or something and stick in those holes so that we don't get anything coming in when it rains. But it's so little when it does rain. Most of the time we don't think about it. So I think by the time we were done, we had about $300 in this building. And when you start putting together a building like this, I mean, you're easily over $1,000, even if you buy something used. And if you go buy a new one, you're probably looking at more like $2,500. And so, you know, to do it for $300 is exactly what you need to do when you're homesteading, because the funds will disappear before you know what happened.
Yeah.
You have to spend a little bit of money on this and on that and on this, and suddenly one of the goats is sick, and you're spending money on a vet that you weren't planning on, and everything just ends up costing money. And
Hoof
so
trimming.
being able to have a cheap but that'll hold up is the key. And metal buildings are great because they hold up well, and they'll last a long time. With the galvanized metal the way it is, you don't have to paint it or anything. You can just leave it. And if it starts rusting out and looking really bad in a couple of years, we'll probably just paint the outside. And by doing that, it'll last a few more years after that. And then if you have to replace it again, what was it again? $300 and a day's work for me and the boys. We just came down here and threw this thing together really fast. So it's just an easy job, and again, it's keeping our hay nice and dry. It's close to the animals because we could put it wherever we wanted pretty much, and that's it with the North Carolina clay the way it is. By the time we flattened out this area with the tractor, and the ground gets hard as a rock because it's clay. It all becomes a big pottery piece in here, and so it's nice and solid. We've had to put some rat poison stuff down here a couple times, but we just got some cats. So we're hoping the cats start to be barn cats, and we can leave them down here, and they can take care of any mice or rats that we have problems with. Yes, that's the game plan anyway. But so far they're just lap kitties. Yes, they're not useful. All right. Anyway, unless you wanted something to sit in your lap and purr and look pretty and be soft.
Yes.
Yeah, which is always useful. All right. Well, that's it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and